Hi guys, and welcome back to another Andrea.M.'s Short and Scary. And today I was doing some research for my bigger video that I do, like my main video on Germany, and I came across the legend of the Headless Horseman. There is a Germanic version of the story, but I found there was a few more as well from a few different countries in Europe. So I thought we could explore that today as a quick little short and scary video. And as you guys have noticed, yes, I'm back in my original lair. I've mentioned it on the other video. It has not stopped raining here for weeks. We are possibly facing another flooding event within the next week because we have even more rain coming. So I'm back in my original lair because I'm having a lot of trouble getting back and forth to the podcast studio. It's actually like further down our property a little bit, and our property is basically a swamp right now. My husband got his car stuck trying to go to work the other morning, and it was in the dark, and it was just, oh my God, such a mess. I am supposed to be heading out for a couple of days just to go and do some things in town. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get my car out, so it's been a bit hard getting back and forth to the podcast studio, so we're back in the original lair for these videos at least. So bear with me. I don't know, I kind of like being back over here because when it starts raining over there, you can't hear a thing. So that's why we're back in the original lair. I might even keep it to this because I do like the atmosphere in here a little bit better. Anyway, we'll see what happens. So today we're going to explore the legend of the Headless Horseman. So as the story goes, or as it is known, the Headless Horseman is an archetype of a mythical figure that has appeared in folklore around Europe since the Middle Ages. So the figures are traditionally described as a horseback rider who is missing their head. The myths have inspired heaps of stories and characters in culture around the world, and that includes movies, songs, all sorts of things. And that includes the amazing legend of Sleepy Hollow, which gave me the love of the story in the first place. So depending on which legend you've heard, the horseman is either carrying his head under his arm or is missing his head entirely, and he might be searching for it. Famous examples include the Dullahan from Ireland, who is a demonic fairy, usually depicted riding a horse and carrying his head under his arm. There is also, as we mentioned, the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and it was a short story written in 1820 by American writer Washington Irving. And it has been adapted into several other works of literature and film, including the 1949 Disney animated film The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Todd, and the 1999 Tim Burton film Sleepy Hollow, which I still find so scary to this day. It's one of my favourite movies ever. So in Irish folklore, the Dullahan or Dulashan, dark man, is a headless demonic fairy, usually riding his horse and carrying his head under his arm. Some versions of the story claim the Dullahan is the spirit of Crom Dubh, a Celtic god worshipped in Ireland until the arrival of Christian missionaries in the 6th century. He wields a whip made from a human corpse's spine. When the Dullahan stops riding, a death occurs. The Dullahan calls out a name, at which point the named victim immediately passes away. In another version, he is the headless driver of a black carriage, the Coist Bodar. A similar figure, the Gan Sian, without a head, can be frightened away by wearing a gold object or putting one in his path. There is also a version of the Headless Horseman from Scottish folklore, and this is near and dear to my heart, seeing as my dad was from Scotland, as I've mentioned before. The most prominent of the Scottish tales of the Headless Horseman concerns a man named Ewan decapitated in a clan battle at Glen Canur on the Isle of Mull. The battle denied him any chance to be a chieftain, and both he and his horse are headless in most accounts of his haunting the area. So that kind of makes me wonder, how do they know where they're going? Because if the horse is headless and he's headless, how do they know where they're going? That would make for a pretty angry ghost, I'd imagine. So among the Highland Scottish Disapora in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, seeing the image or hearing the sound of a horse or headless rider is traditionally regarded as an omen of an imminent death within the family. So yeah, not somebody you want to encounter if you're wanting your family members to stay well and healthy. In Welsh folklore, a number of stories of headless horsemen and women are also found. And this actually sounds really pretty, but it's not. The Fenniwe Heb and Pen, the headless woman who rides a Keffel Heb and Pen, also a horse without a head. This is awful. Why are the horses without their heads? It's bad enough for the people, but the poor horse. Bryn Hall in Leanne Mordy, I think it's Welsh, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry guys, is said to have been haunted by a headless horseman, which only came to an end when one of the hall's servants discerned a message from the horseman identifying the location of a buried body. The body was said to be that of an illegitimate child fathered by the Lord of Bryn Hall. These stories always have such a sad ending or a sad thing that happens in them. As Wales shares cultural similarities with Cornwall, it is possible that a version of the Welsh horseman or a Cornish equivalent may have been what was known to the parents of Washington Irving, who originated in Cornwall, and getting to the German version of this story. So in Germany, the headless horseman stories came mostly from the Rhineland. Rather than using decapitation, the headless horsemen killed their victims simply by touching them. Which isn't great, but it's a little bit more kinder than having your head chopped off by a ghost with no head. They were revenants who had to wander the earth until they atoned for their sins, sometimes by doing a good deed for a stranger. But instead of showing their gratitude by shaking hands, the stranger and the horseman held a tree branch between them, and the branch would wither and die, rather than the stranger. Another version of the legend spoke of Der Kopflos Reiter, the headless horseman, who would warn the living of impending danger and chase down and punish the wicked. So not all of the headless horsemen are bad guys, it seems. This guy sounds like he was kind of trying to help people out. Also an English folklore equivalent of the headless horseman in an area called Dartmoor, and that's in England's ceremonial county of Devon, and it is said to be haunted also by a headless rider. In the times of King Arthur, a figure known as the Green Knight appeared before Arthur's court and challenged one man to come forward and strike him with his axe. He warned them that he would strike with the same blow in a year. Gawain, King Arthur's nephew, accepted the challenge and ended up beheading the knight, who proceeded to retrieve his head and remind Gawain to meet him at the Green Chapel to fulfill his half of the challenge. Whether he did or not remains a mystery. And in American folklore, as we know, there is also versions of the Headless Horseman. So in southern Texas, stories of a figure known as El Muerto, which I guess would translate to the death, have circulated since the mid-1800s. Muerto is said to dangle his head from his saddle. Ugh. And his horse is variably said to produce lightning from his hooves as they strike the ground, so that's kind of cool. It has been speculated that this particular iteration of the Headless Horseman was based on another legend in which another man was captured and beheaded for stealing horses. The man was then made an example of when his killers tied his decapitated body to a wild horse. tied the head to the pommel of the saddle, and sent the horse on its way. So that is how that legend came to light. And that is it for today's a short and scary telling of all the different versions of the Headless Horseman. Stay safe, everybody, and I'll see you on another short and scary very, very soon. Bye for now.